Now, these new birds are absolutely phenomenal. Hello and welcome back to OC Aviary. Today in this video I'm actually going to be buying and trading for a few new birds. So I feel it would be very important and very beneficial for me to talk you through exactly what I look for when I'm buying a bird. So most of these rules are universal. Meaning that this goes for pretty much any bird. So you might be looking to buy, for example, a pigeon, a parakeet, a finch, like mainly what I keep, including the British finches, maybe even a softbill, something such as a pied wagtail, or maybe a Eurasian robin or something like that. So I'm going to start off with the rules, and we also have the bird here which I'm going to be trading as well for a pair. So this is a lesser red-polled hen. She actually bred for me this year. You might recognise her from some previous videos on breeding lesser red-polls. She bred 4 young birds for me this year, and I'm just really looking to move her on, just because I've got quite a few birds that are quite closely related. So I do want to make sure that I mix up the genes, which I am doing, as well as you will see today on some of the new birds that I'm bringing in. So without further ado, let's get to the rules. Okay, so the first rule and the main thing that I look for when buying a bird is actually just the general health of the bird. So something that automatically puts me off a bird is looking at it and it's quiet, sort of sat there, puffed up, just doesn't look right, quite lethargic, really just not in good health. You know, when they're sat there and it's not because they're cold, there's just something clearly wrong with it. A lot like when you see a greenfinch, for example, when it's suffering from coccidiosis or it's going light, you can tell the bird's sat there, it's puffed up, it's not breathing right, and that's something that really puts me off a bird. So if I see a bird that is not looking right, is not healthy and is not active, then automatically I disregard that bird. Doesn't matter if that bird might be the best bird out of the whole bunch, I would rather take a healthy bird than risk losing a bird that doesn't look right. Also, something with the general health is listening to the breathing of the bird. Now, I found this is mainly an issue with bullfinches, as they tend to be quite prone to air sac mite, but that can be in any bird. I do actually have a Fife canary cock who is gaping a bit at the moment, but also the Siberian bullfinch hen. And I've got them on medication, but it's always something that you need to look for and listen out for when buying a bird, is the breathing of the bird. If that bird is breathing heavy, you can hear that. Perhaps it's snotty and it's sort of coughing almost and gaping for air. There's something clearly not right with that bird. It usually is air sac mite, so 100% please do make sure you avoid a bird if you see that, because all it will do is cause you issues, and I'm sure, as you will know, if you lose a bird that you just bought, it's quite upsetting. It's obviously quite a waste of money or in time as well. So there we are. Now, the second rule that I also look for is age. So ultimately the age does depend on what you actually want to do with the bird. So take into account the lifespan of the bird. So for example, with a finch, I won't be looking to take on a bird that is more than really a year or 2 old, unless there is something special there. Because the chances are that it isn't going to be breeding as much, it's going to be more hard work to get fit. So for example, I do have a 2014 greenfinch cock. I took him on last year just as a gift, just to try and get some greenfinch eggs full, as I was struggling with it last year. With my first pair of greenfinches. He didn't actually manage to fill the eggs. I do think that was just due to me, my own fault, not conditioning him. But anyway, you do not want to be getting a bird that is more than a year or 2 old if you're looking to breed it and maybe add it to a line. Now imagine you are buying a proven pair of birds. So for example, you might be buying a proven pair of bullfinches, for example. Maybe they're 2 or 3 years old, but they've proven that's alright because bullfinches will breed to 6 to 7. Same for birds such as crossbills and some of the larger birds. Yet maybe you're looking at a red poll or a siskin or something like that. I mean, this is a 2019 red poll hen, and you know, she's going to a new home and she'll be 2 when she's breeding, so you will get 2 to 3 years out of them. But age is always something which is quite important when buying birds, because it ultimately does depend on what you want to do with them. Obviously, if you're looking to buy something like a parakeet maybe, or you know, pigeon for example, then a bird might be 5 years old and it's alright. Obviously, especially with parakeet species as well, like cockatiels for example, you can breed them until they're about 15 years old, so anything below then is fine. So do make sure that the age does suit your requirements for the bird that you want to buy and what its use will be in your shed. Now, the third thing I do look for on a bird generally is actually just the feather quality. I hate to see a bird that might have messed up feathers, so if it's got feces in its feathers and looks like it hasn't had a bath in a while or something like that, it looks like the bird's been neglected, and I don't want to be bringing that into my shed because it could have something such as mite, and red mite is an absolute pain to really get rid of. I have all my birds with mite powder at the moment actually, so this is actually just diatomaceous earth it's called, and I give all of my birds that. They can eat it, and they do actually like sort of bath in it and cover themselves in it, and that's just like a dust that goes in the feathers of the birds and actually kills the mite, just if there is any. But if you do see a bird that's got bad feather quality and you want to buy it, then I would always say stay away. Obviously if a bird has got signs of damage as well, now it would depend on the breeder, because obviously some birds, they just fight and you can't help that. For example, I do have some green finches which I'm moving on soon, and there are slight areas on the back where the feathers have been pulled out from fighting, but it's nothing major, but it is something that you should take into account, because you don't want to be bringing birds in that have been in really messy and not good conditions. So make sure that when you are buying a bird, you might check it over for mite in its feathers and just check that everything's okay. And then finally, this rule only applies to native finches or birds which need to be rung in your area. So obviously, as you can see there, that is a ring on this red poll hen. So any native finches, so for me that is most of my finches other than my canaries, that need rings, and that's just to make sure that the birds aren't taken from the wild, as you will end up in a lot of trouble if you have wild caught birds. Now there are exceptions, so one exception being that some birds do slip the ring in the nest. I've had that plenty of times before. That's also with just canaries. I try and ring my canaries just so I can track who's related to who and the age of the birds, and it does happen from time to time that a bird slips the ring. So if you are getting a bird without a ring on and it's a native finch or a bird that requires a ring, I would say most definitely avoid that bird unless you trust the breeder. And when I say trust the breeder, I think it's quite important that you've been to their sheds and you've seen their birds and stuff like that, because the last thing you want is a stolen bird from the wild. I've been caught out before. I got caught out with a pair of yellowhammers. So I bought a pair of yellowhammers 2 years ago now, and found the rings looked absolutely fine, and I was at Stafford when I bought them. And then I got them home, let them settle for a few days, checked them again and realised that the rings had actually been split and they were plastic rings and not proper rings. They were Carmine D rings, I believe, from Belgium, and they've been cut down the middle, put round the legs and actually melted back on to make them sealed, and they were definitely wild caught yellowhammers, which was really upsetting. So I did get those birds actually sorted out legally, and they have actually gone back to Belgium and been returned to the wild. So very thankful for obviously people who have helped sort that out. because that ultimately is the best thing to do. If there's a bird that's been caught from the wild, it's horrible to have that bird in a cage, and it clearly isn't going to settle, and it is also illegal. You can get fined, so I did get caught out with that. So something that you need to make sure you 100% look for is a ring on the bird. So that is a closed ring, not a split ring, a closed ring on the leg, either leg of the bird. That obviously tells you its unique identification number, as well as the age of the bird, which should be on there, but also that the bird has been captive bred. Another exception to that is actually if the bird is a mutation. Obviously it is ideal the bird having a ring on, but for example, I have a cinnamon redpoll hen. I bought her last year, and she has a split ring on, a split plastic ring on one leg, and she slipped the actual proper ring, the BBC ring, in the nest from the breeder. Now, I've been to the breeders, and he knows who he is, and fantastic birds you have. And obviously I've looked through, and most of his birds are mutations, but also because this bird is a mutation, it really isn't going to be taken from the wild. So you can be safe to say that this bird is captive bred if it's a mutation. However, I would always recommend that you get a bird with a ring on over a bird without a ring on. So please do make sure you look for that. So now it is time for me to take this bird and take it to the swap, and I will be coming home with 5 different birds. I will be buying some, but also swapping for this one out. So make sure you stay tuned. I'm going to take them now, bring back the new birds, and we'll take a look at them and show you exactly what my plan is for them, and why I chose those birds among others. So let's get to it. We'll go and get the new birds now, and you'll see them shortly. And I am now back with the new birds. So we've got them all here. I've got 4 cages and we've got 5 birds. So I got these from 2 different breeders. So don't want to give any spoilers away yet. So I'm going to put these down now, and we'll take a look at each bird individually. So let's get to it. So I'm going to start out by showing you what's probably the least exciting pair of birds from the collection. So I swapped these for these birds with the redpoll hen. So these are a pair of RedEyed Satinette canaries. So we have the cock on the right and the hen on the left. These are this year's birds, and I believe the breeder has vensexed them. So these are both red eye, so I do need to make sure that because I will be pairing them together next year, that the young are healthy, obviously with both having red eyes, that we shouldn't have any issues. If there are any issues, I will have no choice but to bring in 2 black-eyed, a pair of black-eyed satinettes, so we can cross the pairs. But overall, I am quite pleased with this pair. So this pair, the idea is I'll be breeding them next year, and I'll be getting straight canaries from them, but also they will foster out a few birds. So I'm hoping I might be able to foster some redpolls under them, some siskins, perhaps some mules, and maybe some of the miniature hybrids I plan on doing. So the hybrids and mule pairings will be next week's video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So there you are, that is a pair of red-eyed Satinette canaries. So now for the next bird. So this is a normal redpoll hen. She's a lesser redpoll, and I got her from Darren Bonden. For those of you who are familiar with a lot of people in the hobby, Darren's a great breeder, especially of his green finches, and this bird is actually from Jack Lloyd, and Jack Lloyd's line. So I believe this bird is she's last year's, and I believe she was actually bred by Jack himself. So I'm very, very proud and pleased to own this bird. She's an absolutely fantastic specimen, absolutely fantastic colour. Get her down on the perches ideally. Get her showing it, there we are, a bit of showing herself. Some great shape to her, and some absolutely fantastic markings and streaks down the flanks. So I'm really pleased. I've got her, and she will be a fantastic addition to the bird room. So my plan for her next year will be putting her to a normal cock who I bred this year. The normal cock I'm going to be choosing for her will be split for cinnamon and split for agate. So actually putting this pairing together will produce as visual normals, it will produce as visual agates, visual cinnamons, and also visual Isabels. So I'm hoping that combining her her markings and size and shape and just rich colour, as she is definitely a yellow bird, with the mutations should hopefully make some very good quality mutations. So we'll see how she develops, as obviously we're coming to the end of the molt. She is pretty much malted out now. We'll get her through winter and into next year's breeding plans. Now then, we have this common crossbill cock. So I got him from Darren Bond. Darren bred him this year from his pair, which were, I believe, from Paul O'Kane's line. I don't know the line further back from that, but he is an absolutely fantastic specimen. Really big bird. He's got some fantastic colour. I mean, look at that red. So I'm really pleased to have him. So I will be making up 2 pairs of common crossbills next year. So the plan is he will be paired to the last year's hen who I actually bred from this year, and then the other cock bird will be paired to the 2018 hen. So we'll have 2 pairs of crossbills going next year. Now I do need to check him, however Paul, as you will see later in the special mention, managed to breed a pied crossbill cock this year, pied common crossbill cock, from this very line. So obviously Darren bred this bird, but the parents were bred by Paul, so I'm hoping there's a potential that this bird could carry pied, but we'll have to see what he produces next year and how he develops. Obviously he could molt out into his 2nd year plumage as a pied, but obviously that would be quite unusual and quite a shock. But overall, I'm absolutely over the moon with this bird. He is absolutely fantastic and a pleasure to own. So that's a really big thank you to Darren Bond for him. He's a specimen of a crossbill. So yeah, there you are. That's the common crossbill cock. And now, last but not least, is the new species I will be trying to breed next year. So I did actually mention earlier I had a pair of yellowhammers. Well, this year I thought I'm going to try them again. So this is the first yellowhammer I've got now for next year. So this is actually a hand-reared yellowhammer cock. He is this year's bird, and he was hand-reared by a local chap who breeds the birds, and the parents left the nest, so I've got him from them. So he's absolutely fantastic. He's absolutely gorgeous. If we can get him showing himself in the cage, he is hand-reared, which is why he's so steady. Obviously he's not flying about in the cage, banging into the walls and panicking, so this is a really good sign. I will be working with him as he is hand-reared. Hopefully be able to hand feed him. So I did take an opportunity to get a hand-reared bird, as it will definitely help when breeding them, to keep the birds steady and keep them more calm when I have to inspect the nest and feed the flights, etc. He has been colour fed, I believe. However, he is a young cock and he is a 1st year, so he hasn't completely finished the molt, which is why he isn't as yellow as he usually would be. But nevertheless, an absolutely beautiful bird, pleasure to own, and obviously definitely this year's young bird. So I am very pleased that we have him. Obviously, as you can see, he is still a bunting, so he is a bit panicky, but overall I am so pleased that I have this bird, and I'm sure you guys will love to see the progress with them. So if you do have a captive bred yellowhammer hen then please do get in touch. My email is in the description box below. So if you do have a a captive bred yellow hammer hen, then please let me know, as I will be very interested in buying her off you, or swapping, I don't mind, to try and breed them next year. So with new birds, we have to move them into the new cages. So the plan is I will be adding her straight with the over-year hens. There shouldn't really be an issue. They have got a fairly large flight cage to be going about in. So I can't imagine there'll be an issue. There's loads of space to get away, and plenty of food, plenty of water, so no competition. So she's going to be going in here, and then the Satinette canaries will be going in with the Norwich hen, who I'll be breeding off next year. Two of the Norwich I have actually already paired up for muling. So make sure you stay tuned, you subscribe and get the notifications bell on, as I will be pairing up the mules in next week's video, and you'll see how I do that and the conditions I give them to get them bonded best. So make sure you stay tuned to that. We're going to get her in there, we're going to get the Satinettes in there, and then these two will go to the other shed, the large Finch shed. Now, as always, from the main part of the show, it is now time for this week's eye catcher. So this week's eye catcher is a lesser red poll hen. She is actually a cobalt. So as you can see, she's got some real good colour coming on now. A bit of a tuft on her head, just from where she's had a bath, and it's just not dried, I believe. But overall, some real good quality coming from her. I did breed her last year, and she has almost fully molted now. We're obviously seeing some really good dark colours around the face and on the wings. There's good markings on the flanks. A bit of a letdown is the little white bit just through her chest, but nothing major, and always something that we can breed out of the line, which shouldn't be an issue anyway. So she is this week's eye catcher, and I do really like this bird, so I will be breeding from her sister, and another cobalt hen next year. I also have her dad, who I bred this year, and her little, I believe it's a little brother, who is a cobalt I bred this year as well. So I have 5 cobalts in the shed, and they are something that I love to have in my red poll stock, as they are by far the best birds. Now, this week's special mention goes to Paul O'Kane. So this year, Paul managed to breed a common crossbill cockbird that was pied. So we've only got a short video of it, so I've taken a couple of screenshots from the best views of the bird to take a look at. So pied crossbills in general aren't a common occurrence at all. I know, and I'm aware that Carl Dodge actually has a few pied carrier hens, but overall the pied crossbills really aren't something that's been developed as of yet. So that's a massive well done for Paul for actually breeding one, and I'm hoping that this year he will manage to breed several more. Within the next year he will breed off of that cockbird, but also manage to produce some more visuals from the pair he bred him from, and a couple of visuals, or at least carriers, from the pied cock himself. So that's really is a big well done to Paul for breeding that, and hopefully the pied crossbill will be something that we'll see emerging very soon into public eye in the shows, but also something that it should be available to buy, obviously for an increased price on the normal common crossbill. So now it is time to end the video, so thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you do like the new birds that I've brought in. Obviously we've got the pair of Satinette, the red-eyed Satinette canaries. We have the new redpoll, the lesser redpoll hen from Jack Lloyd's line. So that'll be very interesting to see how we can use her next year and the birds we produce off her in the breeding season next year. Not only do we have her, but we also have the new crossbill cock, who we will be breeding in the next few months. Crossbills, if you aren't already aware, do breed a lot earlier than most of the British finches, or if not all of. They start breeding from about December to January time. So I am starting to condition the crossbills now into breeding condition, obviously slowly and gradually to build them up so that they are absolutely raring to go from about January to February sort of time. And hopefully we do manage to get 2 or 3 rounds off the crossbills this year, of more than 2, as we only did get 1 round of 2 this year. And then we have the yellow hammer, or the yellow bunting cock. So I'm very, very pleased and excited to have one of those. Not something that you can come across every day, so I was very, very fortunate that one of these was for sale. So I took the chance, picked him up, and I'm hoping that I will be able to get a hen for next year. I'm sure I will be able to. We have 6 months really until I do need to be, really it is important to get a hen. So I have 6 months to look for a hen, really looking to get one for mainly March, April sort of time. I do have a few breeders in mind I'm going to contact for a hen. However, if you do have a hen, then my email is in the description below, so please do email me if you have a captive bred yellow hammer hen. Ideally I would be looking for this year's bird or last year's bird, but I will consider something else depending on your location and also the price of that bird. Now just to talk for next week's video, so do make sure you have your notifications on, because next week's video will be a very important one you will want to see and you don't want to miss. I will be pairing up for mules and hybrids. So I have 2 mule pairs sort of planned and 2 hybrid pairs planned. One which you saw actually in last week's video on the Avian World Dublin unboxing. They was in the back, so you will get to see what I'm planning on doing for hybrids next year and the mules I'm planning to do. There may be room for 1 more mule being pair, which involves a Norwich cock, which I have in here, but I will have to see what I can find, whether I get a Norwich hen for him or maybe I do get a Finch hen. So we'll see what happens there. So do make sure you are subscribed if you aren't already. Please do get the notifications on, as you won't want to miss any of my future videos, and especially obviously not next week's video. Please do share this video with anyone who might be interested in seeing what new birds I've got, but also any tips on what to look for when you're buying birds, as you always want to make sure you get the best birds for what you're paying, and that you don't bring anything back to your shed that you wouldn't want to bring back, you know, parasites, disease, etc. You get my idea. So there you are. So subscribe if you're new, please leave a like, please hit the notification bell, and I will see you in the next video.